Alright, YouTube, it's time for the Occult Video 98 on Occult Synchronicity. It's definitely something that's in play right now, regarding Pepe the Frog, internet occultism, memetics, things of that nature. It's got people to the point where they're almost losing their minds. Not in a bad way, I will say. If you're feeling confused and you're sort of dabbling in this stuff or observing it, it's kind of normal if you don't have a great deal of occult training. If you haven't read a bunch of books and studied these things and learned a great deal of critical thinking, it's going to confuse you. Otherwise, it's more like a gnosis. It's very difficult to explain to people that don't really have any interest in these things. Now, Carl Jung, of course, is sort of the one connected with occult synchronicity, as in two things or more, I would say, that are interrelated without, explicitly being able to explain cause and effect as the origin. It's sort of like coincidence that goes beyond coincidence. I would prefer to explain it as number of coincidences that rise well above, sort of background noise within the likelihood of such things happening. If it's only one coincidence at a time, discrete, singular, involving complex things that for which more coincidences could exist, I will generally write it off and I'll say, well, it's kind of weird, but, coincidences happen. When it gets to the point where there are 3 or 4 things happening and there aren't that many more points of overlap that could possibly be manufactured without using like the 5 degrees of separation, that's when I say it's a true occult synchronicity. I'm going to be making a video later associated with this topic, as it overlaps with several, apparently, songs that have been released over time. Memetics, Keck, the Black Clad Legion spoken of back in the 80s. All of these things now have fully become intertwined together at such a degree that it defies explanation by logical, sane, rational means that would be posited by, let's say, secular individuals. Now, I don't like to say that the only reason that can exist is secular reason. I do not believe, for instance, in a god, specifically an anthropic deity. I'm not a theist, and therefore I sort of throw out the, we found the Ark of the Covenant sort of bullshit that I tend to see, because it's obviously propaganda for a religious purpose. But where I see a large number of overlapping coincidences, so-called, between two events, two people, two time periods and objects, any 2 or more things, then I say it's synthesizing itself in such a way that we're seeing a linkage here, even if it's only anthropic, it's only within the human realm. It does exist in some possibly tangible form. There's something there that needs to be investigated and quantified, and it has a usefulness. And I look at these levels of overlap as having a deeper intrinsic meaning on reality as a total. Now, the concept of occult synchronicity can happen in multiple ways. Now, one would be like you perform a ritual. Let's say you perform a death curse, the person dies. Okay, well that's, kind of an occult synchronicity. But at the same time, you could also relegate that to simple cause and effect. You could just say, well, it's some quantum energy or something. Or you could say it's coincidence. So there's sort of a double cop out there if you're not quite believing that there's a synchronicity involved that has directly to do with the occult or anything sort of spooky dooky. That would be a fair explanation or a fair theory of how to explain why something like that would happen. It's when you have multiple points of overlap, especially in a more simplistic scenario in which there aren't that many markers of any significance that you could compare. Now, we have to be careful with significance, because sometimes what the human considers significant may not be, what they consider insignificant may be, and it has to do with our limited capacity to reason about the world around us. So we can't artificially limit, right on the surface, whether some connection made or some marker we could compare to find a connection is significant or not. We have to either compare them all, or we have to have sort of a mundane series of things that can be compared and contrasted in order to make that determination. It gets into logic, it gets into reason, it gets into the fact that, technically speaking, any two things could be infinitely comparable. You could break them down into their atoms and say, well, 99% of the atoms between this microphone and this computer are of the same general type, and so we can compare them atom for atom, find their spin and stuff. You could go into, total warped mode there and start ranting like Tesla or Einstein on the subject. And you could make a pretty good reasoned argument as to why that should be done. But we're generally talking about the observable and the anthropic when we're talking about occult synchronicity. Like I said, I will be making a video later that contains a great deal on this subject, specifically as it relates to memetics in the internet age. And I think there's quite a bit there. People will be very interested, I think, to hear sort of the synthesization that I've witnessed and that I've been directly involved with for years, at first without even really understanding what was going on, really knowing what the fuck's happening here. That's just sort of the way it is within the occult. Had somebody ask me, don't you think this is getting out of hand a little bit? Like, no, some of us know how to command these things. Some of us have been sort of born and raised in it. And it becomes innate. After a while, it's just like, go with the flow. It's just sort of happening. I'm witnessing it, I'm observing it, I'm perturbing it in whatever direction I want. But at the same time, I'm just sort of enjoying the show as well. Not even necessarily involved with all aspects of ritualism around memetics, around occult synchronicity and things of that nature. I've told parts of my own story as far as how I got into the occult, what I've witnessed specifically that got me believing in the occult before. Now, I choose to believe there's an occult synchronicity there. For instance, I've explained, when I was a child, I saw this strange, like, glowing wolf outside of my bedroom window. Now, this was on the second floor in a state where wolves have been extinct for decades, so it wasn't actually a physical wolf. Unless wolves suddenly can jump 20 feet in the air, I'm thinking that's probably not the case. Also, they don't usually look like they're, drawn. Like an artistic wolf, it would look like a dog, essentially. This one didn't. In fact, it looked exactly like the cover of Radio Werewolf's album there. I can't remember which one it was. The one with the wolf on the front, the Fenris wolf. Looked exactly the same. In retrospect, I realized, oh, well, that's where I saw it first. And then it was weird because, of course, when I stumbled upon this sort of musical material, it was related to Charles Manson. I'll explain it more in depth in the next video that I'll make later. I've got to cover Ophiolatreia as well. It ties into Charles Manson, it ties into like Gothic culture, it ties into numerous different rituals that were documented at the time that I was seeing this, and it was all very strange, and it was at that point that I realized, oh shit, something larger is at work here. That's when I began embracing the term occultist as opposed to what I had been, which is like, well, I'm an atheist, but I'm kind of spiritually minded. But at the same time, if you witness that sort of thing as an anecdotal experience, that is, you yourself, you should start believing in these things. It's not just coincidence. If you don't have any reason to believe in them, I would encourage you, stay like atheist or completely secular or something. You've been given no reason to believe in these things. I'm not here to proselytize and tell people, well, you must begin having sex with demons immediately. That used to be like a shitpost on 4chan. For a while, some people claiming to be from the Joy of Satan were saying that it is imperative that you begin having sex with demons immediately, and God's evil, Satan's good. You get a create like bastard spawn in the netherworld or something. It was very, very, very weird. This is around the time that I started getting spammed by Joy of Satan too. I don't have anything against Joy of Satan, but it was a little bit annoying to watch that every single fucking day, I will say. It's basically on every thread on 4chan, every video I made related to the occult is like, what gives? How many sock accounts do you have? But there are many occult synchronicities that I've witnessed in my life that go well beyond the realm of coincidence. I can't rationalize them. That's the problem. I'd like to rationalize them. I'd like to think that the world is more easily explained and mundane. Because I like science, I like logic and reason, I like the secular side of things, I like the historical side of spirituality, arguably more than I like sort of the ceremonial side of what I'm actually researching, editing, writing about. I like that more theoretical, historical, archaeological especially, side of things. But if I find something that I can't rationalize, I can go through Christianity, I can rationalize all the weird events that they're talking about. I can rationalize them easily because I wasn't there to witness them. I can't judge on the surface whether it's mystical or whether it's something people were just illiterate or drunk or something and so they misconstrued what was going on. So I'm going to rationalize that. But if I myself witness something when I know that I'm sober and I know that I'm the only person whose view of reality I can truly fully understand, and trust, perhaps, then it becomes much more difficult to simply say, oh, well, coincidence. Oh, well, some mundane phenomena or something like that. It becomes very difficult to do. Occult synchronicity, I do believe in. I believe that there are forces at play in our reality that go beyond the mundane and the explainable in secular terms. Now, you can chalk this up. The grand cop-out, and you see it gaining mainstream dominance now, is one of, well, technically there are two. There's the ancient alien stuff, which I'm kind of in favor of. I like the idea that there are life forms out there that are intelligent. I think mathematically speaking, it's impossible that there aren't. The other is the Matrix theory, the idea that this is all, literally everything around you right now is a complete illusion. You're in a video game or something. I think there's a possibility that that's true, because things like occult synchronicity, they don't seem to make sense outside of the context of something where the laws of physics, the laws of reason, and so forth can be bent in some circumstances because they're kind of malleable. They're generally not, but at the same time you can sort of hack the system a little bit with your own self-awareness or something. I think that's possible. I think both of these theories are possible. I also think it's possible there's some grand divine force that led to, not creation, I don't believe there was a single point in creation, but led to existence, essentially, or oversees it. I don't call it a god. I don't call it intelligence, certainly, because I look around the world today, I don't see much intelligence, so I would call it an unintelligent force, more of a deistic force, or just a cosmic energy, or something like that. Some force that we haven't been able to quantify. It's not like a dude in the sky or a woman in the sky. It's not a pantheon or something like that. And I have a general appreciation for the possibility that that's true. That being said, technically I'm still an apatheist. I don't really care about the theistic arguments very much. As far as Ket goes, I ascribe it to an egregore. I ascribe it to a servitor. I ascribe it to a force. Not a being, a force, something that is occult in nature. It is not divine in nature. But it is becoming more and more powerful with what Hillary Clinton just did yesterday. If there's any truth to this occult principle at all, she's probably going to reap an effect that's even worse than what happened at the 9/11 memorial. Of course, she came out and attacked the alt-right, among whom there are thousands of people who are involved explicitly and self-proclaimedly in memetics. She suddenly has a bunch of coughing fits. Her first press conference in almost a year, she has to cut it short. She looks like an idiot up on stage. Then she attacks tens of millions of people, among whom are hundreds of thousands or millions of people that are involved sort of with memetics and Keck and all this stuff. And she faints on 9/11, literally goes limp, has to be thrown in the back of a van, and so forth. Now she's attacked the actual egregore itself, which has been fed so much energy by so many people that it's almost self-aware or capable of being so at this point. So what do you fucking think's gonna happen? Something is going to happen, I believe, in the next weeks or so. Maybe it'll take place in the first debate. Maybe she'll collapse during the debate. Maybe she'll shit her pants. Maybe she'll start coughing during the debate, not be able to continue. She'll end up leaving the stage, and Trump will have 10 minutes to just rant to himself. Wouldn't that be absolutely hilarious? You've got here's the funny thing. You've got a situation now where Democratic operatives, this won't happen, I don't believe, but they're discussing, admittedly by their own words, they're discussing the possibility of replacing the Democratic candidate who happens to be Hillary Clinton. Will it happen? No, there's like a 1 in a million chance of it, but the mere fact that they're discussing it, my God, you haven't seen this in a long, long time. In fact, I don't think we may have ever seen it before. Has there ever been a time? Maybe FDR, like fourth-term FDR, when it was clear he was no longer really capable of doing anything. There were a lot of people who stood against it then. He started losing favor. I think you'd be hard-pressed to find another Democrat who's as health-addled, certainly as Hillary Clinton, as FDR, like Clinton, he apparently couldn't walk on his own very easily. He had to use like braces. It looks like Hillary might be using them now too. It'd be very funny if she began to resemble FDR. They wheel her out on stage. She's like all slumped over and fucked up. But it's an occult synchronicity, and the election is directly tied into this occult practice. People would like to think that it's a joke, but I can show you many examples of where it's not a joke. It's not fun and games. It's not a joke anymore. It's not just some fucking cartoon frog. It is, for political purposes, it's just a harmless cartoon frog. And to see a presidential candidate ranting about a meme is otherworldly. It's just totally insane. But at the same time, yeah, there's some occultism there. Not Nazis, not, oh, evil white nationalists. No, the word she's looking for is occultism. But she's not going to use that word. Do you imagine if going up on stage and ranting about how a frog is Hitler or something is going to get you, a little bit of air twirling going on in the audience? How much more if she said, oh yeah, witches are after me, wizards are trying to kill me, or something like that. They're trying to make me have coughing fits, or they're trying to make me drop in the polls or something. Can you imagine? People would think she was a fucking lunatic. It'd sound like something Sarah Palin would say on the other side. Oh, well, the power of Jesus protect me from all these witches and stuff. Yeah, she's under occult attack. There are spiritual forces that people are dabbling with or using that display occult synchronicity. I'll be glad to show you. Later, of course. I have to, take a shower. I'm still overhauling the garden. I gotta make a video on Ophiolotrea is now available. Yes, many people waiting for that. So much to do. This is like the most energetic September that I've ever had. I feel, by the way, better now than I did when I was a teenager. I'm almost 30 now. I actually feel better than I did when I was in my teens. It's very funny. That's about all. Peace out.